The time compass. India, Part 1. When water is in the sky, you could imagine it like a pure spirit. Then, when it falls in the form of rain or snow, it connects the purity of the heavens with mountain peaks. As it melts, each drop of water joins together with others to form a tiny trickle. The trickles join to form streams, and so on, till gradually the water washing down the mountain forms a river. This flow of pure water could run through valleys and plains for thousands of kilometers before eventually reaching the sea. When pure water washes down from the mountains and forms a large and constantly flowing river, the lands it travels through become fertile and easy to farm. This is why nearly all of the great ancient civilizations began in areas which were fed by a great river. The ancient Egyptians had the Nile River, the Mesopotamians had the Tigris and Euphrates, in China the Yellow River, and the waters of the Indus River gave birth to one of the most ancient and famous civilizations in history. Around the year 5500 BC, the civilization of India. The Indian people considered their rivers to be sacred. For them, life itself was like water, where each drop, just like each person, had to join together with countless others to flow along the path that was set out for them. Everyone had a set destiny, whether they would live in one place or another, have sickness or health,
or be destined to have crazy hair.
What do you mean, Peepo? You have crazy hair? Ah, yes, I see. Well, destiny is sort of like that. You see, in ancient India, accepting the destiny that was drawn out for you before you were born was like accepting the laws of nature. Fighting your destiny meant losing the opportunity to be reborn as something better in the next life. The Indus and Ganges Rivers. The Indus River flows through the subcontinent of India, from the great heights of the Himalayas all the way to the Indian Ocean. Great civilizations formed on the banks of this river around the year 2500 BC, and these became centers of wealth, refinement, and power. But another very important river existed in India, the Ganges, whose fertile plains were gradually settled by migratory flows of people from the center of the European continent. This great number of people spoke a new language, Indo-European, and they settled there by creating new cities. Okay, new in a manner of speaking, because we're talking about the year 1500 BC. These new cities and settlements gave rise to a new civilization.
But they aren't new. They're older than my granddad's boots.
You're right, Peepo. This civilization that was new at that time was called the Vedic civilization, or the Vedic age. And these people dedicated themselves to putting into writing the hundreds of tales about their gods into texts called the Vedas. These texts became the basis of the oldest living religion in the world, Hinduism. Hinduism. Hindus view the universe as an immense space of indescribable dimensions that comprise a series of cycles of various lengths. For them, a kalpa, which is as long as a day in the life of Brahma, the god of creation, lasts 4.32 billion of our years.
Wow, that's over 1 billion years between breakfast and lunch.
It's also a lot of time for things to happen. You see, Hinduism and its traditions are so rich that there is no one work that can hold all the stories and teachings it comprises. It is said there are 330 million gods and goddesses, and countless stories about them all. In these stories, the gods evolve or lose some of their powers, or disguise themselves, change into animals, provide light for other gods, and so on. But to keep things simple, let's talk about 3 of the major gods. First, we have Brahma, the god of creation, traditionally depicted as having 4 heads and 4 arms. Then there's Shiva, who is often depicted as having 3 eyes. Shiva represents destruction and transformation, and many other things. He's the master of yoga, bestows mercy and compassion, and is associated with music and dance and more. But back to Brahma for a moment. Some traditions teach that Brahma did not have a mother, but was born at the beginning of the universe, in a lotus blossom on the navel of another god. This god is in charge of maintaining the vast cosmos and keeping everything in its place. This god's name is Vishnu. Vishnu can adopt earthly forms, as other gods can sometimes do. So if the earth is endangered by something, Vishnu could descend to earth and help humankind. Some traditions teach that the last time he came to earth, he came as Krishna. And before that, he came to earth as Rama. The stories of Rama and Krishna are 2 of the most famous Indian epics, the Ramayana and Mahabharata. The caste system. The legend goes that the stories about the origins of the world were revealed to a chosen few through the musical vibrations of the cosmos. This select group of people were called Brahmins, who were priests, scholars, and teachers. We Brahmins can hear the universal music that tells us the secrets of the cosmos. Because they were the only ones who could understand the destiny of men, Brahmins were greatly respected and belonged to the highest caste. But what is a caste?
A group of friends?
No. A sports team. A cosmic music group?
Good guesses, but that's not right. You see, a caste was a way of organizing people, giving them a place in society from the time they were born. Each child belonged to the caste in which they were born, and they usually had to fulfill this role for the rest of their lives. If a child was born into a family of Brahmins, the child would become a priest and would have many privileges. But he could usually never become, say, a warrior, which were the second most important caste. The Kshatriya. Rulers were also part of this caste. The warriors were strong and brave, but they would usually never be anything but warriors. They couldn't even marry a girl from another caste. In fact, they couldn't even talk to her.
Oh!
The third caste was the Vaishya, who were farmers, artisans, and merchants. And finally, there were the servants, called Sudras. But if you think being a servant was the worst job, then you're wrong. There were people even lower than the servants, called Dalits. Dalits, formerly called untouchables, were people who did not belong to any caste and usually had to do the worst jobs. Dalits couldn't drink from the same sources of water as other people, and people could never touch them, or even their shadows. If this happened, the person would become contaminated and had to be purified. Being a Dalit was definitely a hard life. Let's dig a little deeper with our time compass and find out how societies were organized in other parts of the world. In ancient Egypt, for example, the pharaoh was at the top spot of society. Just like a Brahmin in India, a pharaoh was thought to be divine. Under the pharaohs were the priests, who were in charge of serving the gods. Under the priests were the scribes, whose greatest ability was that they knew how to write. Below them were the soldiers in the army, who were responsible for protecting and ensuring the unity of the empire. Then came the merchants and artisans. And a little further down from them were the farmers. The lowest caste in Egypt, those who had to do the worst jobs, were the slaves.
Ah, just like the Dalits in India.
Similar, but not the same. Firstly, the Dalits in India did not belong to any caste, which means they weren't even considered to be members of society and did not have any rights. Secondly, in India, when somebody was born in a caste, they had no other option but stay in that role for their whole life. In ancient Egypt, however, the system was not as strict. For example, there were merchants who married peasants, and even the poorest people had rights. In fact, if they managed to save enough money, they could buy their own lands and improve their lot in society. Coming up in the next episode, India Part 2. In the year 563 BC, a man brought a new perspective to things in India. And his ideas helped many people who were suffering under the caste system. This man was called Siddhartha Gautama, but in time, he came to be known as Buddha. The young Siddhartha was the main heir to a small kingdom. His father loved him greatly and did not want it. The young prince was isolated in a wonderful palace, surrounded by various pleasures, servants, and delightful music. In this way, his father tried to hide aging, sickness, and death from him.